Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. I would like to start this off by saying that I don't plan to go into any really detailed spoilers, but Heroic Age is one of those shows that throws a lot of information at you at once, but then only gradually gets around to explaining everything over the course of the series. As much as I love a good reveal, that format's not really effective for reviewing. There's no point in talking about something if no one understands what I'm talking about. So, story spoilers aside, I'm going to do my best to set up the series in a coherent way, because honestly, I was lost on and off throughout a lot of it. Heroic Age is one of those futuristic stories where humankind migrated to space after Earth became uninhabitable, but there were already several races living there. First was the Golden Tribe. They were the supreme rulers, basically, and tried to bring all the others together and keep the universe at peace. The Silver Tribe were their second in command and rule over the Bronze Tribe, which is the most primitive of the races. They're basically giant insects, while the rest are all humanoid. There was also the Heroic Tribe, which was the warrior race, and the Gold dubbed the humans the Iron Tribe when they joined everything. At the time our story starts, the Golden Tribe left this universe quite a while ago, and the Heroic Tribe has been almost completely wiped out. The Iron and Silver Tribes have been at war ever since, fighting for the right to be the next ruler. You might think the Silver Tribe would be the obvious successor, but the Gold's final act has left many with the impression that they favored the Iron Tribe. The Golden Tribe left this universe with 5 Nodos, people who've had the power of the Heroic Tribe implanted in them. This gives them the ability to morph into giant beasts, each with their own special power, and I'm like 99% certain that they're purely organic creatures, but this series definitely evokes that feeling of a giant robots fighting in space type show. Anyway, the Nodos were each gifted to different tribes, or groups of people within the tribes, but as the Silver Tribe rules over most of them, 4 of them have ended up in Silver's hands. The notable thing is that the 5th Nodos, the one gifted to the Iron Tribe, is well known to be the strongest, which is why there are so many questions and doubts regarding the Golden Tribe's motives. Our story starts with Dianela, the princess of the Iron Tribe. She's leading her ship, the Argonaut, on a search for the planet the Golden Tribe was last known to be living on, looking for their Nodos, who's sort of become a thing of legend to all the tribes. I did find it a bit odd at first that the other Nodos were just given to the people they'd been assigned to protect, while the humans had to go find theirs. But in hindsight it doesn't seem so strange. It won't be the last time the Iron Tribe is forced to prove themselves before they're given something promised to them by the Golden Tribe. Anyway, after a long search mission, the Argonaut does succeed in finding the lost planet, which has fallen into ruin since the Golden Tribe's departure. But they do come across a boy living out of one of the old golden ships, and it's confirmed that he's the last Nodos when they're attacked by a silver ship that was pursuing them, and he transforms to protect them. The boy introduces himself as Age. He's cheerful and has a very simple view of the world, which makes him adorable for one, but also allows him to see solutions the others miss, but that's much later to come. Most interestingly, he can remember living with the Golden Tribe until their disappearance and can confirm the legend that he was told to protect the Iron Tribe and lead them to victory, and in return they'll help restore his planet. It feels like it took forever to get hardly anywhere. Story-wise, this only brings us up through episode 2, but this should cover everything you need to have a basis for the rest of the series. The war with the Silver Tribe continues, and things get more complicated every step of the way, which I loved. Dianela may have been the one leading this mission to find Age, but her 2 brothers are the ones actually ruling the Iron Tribe. The princes are arrogant and foolish, but quick to take advantage of Age's power once the word spreads that she's actually found him. Dianela's the negotiator, while her brothers would rather just destroy anyone who stands in their way. They instructed her to follow after this legend in the first place just to keep her out of the way, afraid she'd win favor with their people and depose them. So now that they have this legendary power, now that she's secured Age's loyalty for them, it's full speed ahead for the princes, and they try to fight the Silver Tribe head-on, showcasing their lack of common sense and incompetence as rulers every step of the way. While all this is going on, we're also given a chance to get to know the other 4 Nodos. There's Yuti, the Silver Nodos, who's the strictest about making sure they honor their responsibilities to their tribes, aka her tribe, and the other 3 are kept in check by that, as the Silver Tribe is essentially holding their clans hostage. This is especially true for Mehitak, who's extremely pacifistic, but kept loyal by the threat the Silver Tribe poses to his equally peaceful people. These 2 definitely felt the most developed as characters. The other 2 felt more like their special abilities were meant to take the place of their personalities. There's Karkinos, who can regenerate, and Lekti, who can jump through time, and transport her allies back to crucial points in a battle to turn the tide. It's not that these 2 had no personality apart from their gifts, they were just a little bland in comparison, but I liked all the Nodos, and they had an interesting dynamic. Each Nodos is given a set of labors, the fancy term for the list of responsibilities to their peoples, and as dedicated as they all are to those labors, they're also questioning the Golden Tribe's intentions for them, particularly when it becomes clear that some of their labors contradict each other's. Meanwhile, there was my favorite aspect to this story. Getting to know the other Nodos allowed us to see more of the Silver Tribe as well, and the look at the cultural differences between the 2 warring tribes, which was kind of a redeeming point for me. I was never that attached to the Iron Tribe as the human race. I guess I was expecting something more along the lines of it was their technological skills that set them apart and allowed them to compete with the other races. But the humans in this show have just as many magical powers as everyone else, and the Silver Tribe look enough like humans that it's quite a while before we're given any real insight into what sets them apart. The big one is that the Silvers look down on those who let their emotions influence their ability to make decisions, which is a pretty relatable staple of humankind, and the other big point they make is the importance the Iron Tribe places on the past. They're the only tribe to place major significance on the concept of a home planet, and that plays a big role in the latter half of the series. I'm the type to get really sucked into fictional politics, so I loved the awareness there, that both tribes acknowledge how little they actually understand their enemy. Heroic Age was definitely the type of show that made me think. There was a lot going on from start to finish. Even with 26 episodes, I'm kind of impressed that they managed to wrap things up in a way that felt complete. And at the end of it all, I really liked Heroic Age, but it didn't have that extra something that made me love it. I think some of it was a purely aesthetic thing. I've just never been able to get into stories that are set in space. Episode 4 is the first one I remember being really good. It's the first time Age encounters one of the other Nodos, which is a big deal. But I don't think it's a coincidence that it takes place on one of the planets and is one of the brightest, most colorful episodes in the whole show. Space settings are just so monotonous. Apart from the Nodos clashes, even the battles weren't usually that eye-catching. There's a lot of barking technical orders at screens, and that part of it just wasn't for me. And on top of that, even the music felt a little generic. This show sounds pretty much exactly the way you'd expect it to. But the bigger thing for me was the characters. Even the ones I really liked, I just never felt an emotional connection to. Age and Dianela were the big ones. I really liked Age. He was a breath of fresh air every time he was on screen. But that's not actually that often, considering he should be one of the most important characters in this show, if not the most important. The longer the series went on, the more it started to feel like Age had been demoted to being a plot device. And Age and Dianela both suffered from a sort of savior syndrome. Like, I did like both of their characters. I just got sick really quickly of hearing everyone else talk about how great they were. There's just something inherently unlikable about the type of character that every other character spends half their screen time fawning over. And especially in this case, it really felt like a shame because Age and Dianela were strong enough characters to stand on their own without having to constantly remind the audience how wonderful they are. And though I stand by that, Dianela had a few of her own problems. To be honest, she was the one doing most of the fawning over Age, and her whole character gave off this fragile, damsel-in-distress vibe that really didn't fit with who she actually was. Dianela may have been gentle and kind, but she was also brave and proved herself to have a better understanding of battle strategy than both her brothers combined. I may have gotten tired of hearing the praise her crew had for her, but it wasn't because she didn't deserve it. I definitely got the impression after a while that the writers had a very set idea of how to write a princess, like they were trying to force her into a space where she just didn't fit. It's always a harder transition when I end things off on the low points. I really did like Heroic Age, more than I was expecting to if we're being totally honest. It was one of those series where I found the DVDs at the flea market, and I never pass up cheap anime. It then proceeded to sit on my shelf for 2 or 3 years until I finally decided it was about time I watched it, and it turned into a much bigger undertaking than I'd thought it would be, in a good way. I love stories like this, that have a ton of different parts to them, especially when each part feels fully explored by the end. That's a big plus. Heroic Age was much more than the generic carbon copy of every other futuristic space story I'd kind of been expecting. I've started to think of it as more of a war story that just happens to be set in space, so I can only imagine the impression it would leave on someone who doesn't have to overcome that first hurdle of not particularly liking the genre. Thank you for watching.